Hi, this is Mark. Congratulations, you have found this amazingly awesome show. Chances are you're listening to it right now on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or some other mobile app that allows you to stream this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. And I can't stress how awesomely amazing this show really is. But did you know that you can also catch the latest episode of this show on the Tangibound Network? That's right. Go check out tangiboundnetwork.com. You can look them up and you can listen to it right there. It's even mobile friendly. What more could you ask for? Which means you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android, even your Windows phone. Yeah, who has one of those? But still, point remains, you can do it. You can do it. Check it out, tangiboundnetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time. Check it out.
Hello, everybody. This is the MLBeers podcast with your hosts, Andrew Sherman and Philip Corwin. Philip, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well also. Just got out of school, and I'm just ready to talk about baseball, but I don't want to talk about what happened last night. But we got to, you know.
Yeah. What are this, man? What am I thinking of? It was all over Twitter. The Yankees playing the Imperial March.
Yeah, which was kind of hilarious in a sense. How, if you guys did not watch the Yankees Twins game, they played the Star Wars themes, which kind of seems like every team does that for their first game, their first home game of the playoffs. And for some odd reason, the Yankees played the normal Star Wars theme that everybody recognizes and all that stuff. But then they played the Imperial March for the Minnesota Twins, which, of course, everybody knows that too, or Darth Vader's theme is another name for it. But it was kind of an oxymoron, or ironic in a sense, because
the Twins aren't some evil galactic empire of baseball like the Yankees.
Yeah. And that's where it was very, very, I thought it was very hilarious when that happened. Very ironic that the Yankees would play that song for the Twins when everybody knows outside of the New York City area or isn't a Yankees fan, know that's pretty much their theme song.
Yeah. Everywhere they go. So maybe it was just them trying to be funny or something.
Again, I think it was just because everybody loves Star Wars, the whole pop culture thing, and that's where it kind of, I think that's where they collide. I mean, I definitely remember Game 3 of the 2011 World Series. They did the same thing. Texas, it was at the ballpark in Arlington. Texas was doing the whole lineups for St. Louis. They were playing the Imperial March. And, of course, the Rangers had the normal Star Wars theme. It was funny that night because not only that St. Louis won the game 11-6, but it was the game that Albert Pujols hit 3 home runs since Reggie Jackson in the 1970s. So that was the kind of the hilarious thing. And, if you want to compare the two, I think even though I'm a huge Cardinals fan, it kind of makes sense because everybody thinks that the Cardinals are like the Yankee equivalent of the National League, even though they do have the titles, but nothing ridiculous like the Yankees, nor they have the money like the Yankees. They just keep on winning, and they kind of see this empire where it actually would have been 18 years this year. Would have been 18, but it's 7 for the longest winning streak in Cardinals history. which was really interesting. If they had a winning record in 2008, it would have been 18 years, which would have broke the record by, I believe, 6 years, if I remember correctly. It was on the Cardinals broadcast, but it just makes sense. But it just makes sense because it's like the Cardinals are, like I said, the Yankees of the National League, yada yada yada. Everybody sees them as the bad boys, in a sense, the bad guys. So,
Did not know that. Well, I knew that they were the terrible team of the NL, but
see, yeah, I mean, everybody knows. I know it, and it's. I mean, remember hashtag best fans in baseball, right?
yeah,
It all starts with that. All right. So anyway, before we talk about the Yankees-Twins game highlights, I should say, let's get down to the news real quick. It's been a very busy, past couple of days, since the last game on Sunday to yesterday with the first game of the playoffs. Jeff Bannister, this just happened today. The Texas Rangers picked up the 2019 option for Jeff Bannister, so he's going to be there for quite a while as manager. And one of our friends from the Twitter sphere is very disappointed at it.
oh yeah,
I can't say much. From what I've seen, he's done well. He's been there since 2015. He's been to the playoffs, 2 out of the 3 years that he's been there. So I can't complain, but I'm the outsider looking in, so I can't say, really, is he really that good or bad of a manager, like how I can, dissect Mike Matheny. Then the Phillies manager, well, now former manager, Pete McCannon, is now the special assistant to the GM, which is going to be interesting. I mean, he was only there for 1 year after Ryan Sandberg was there, and he resigned in the end of the 2015 season. Pete McCannon took over that job at the end of the year, and then for 2 years he was the manager, and there you go. Now, I think the biggest one out of this, before business, before the rule of the world of business comes through, is that Terry Collins finally resigns from the New York Mets. And I have to ask you, how do you feel about that?
Did they get a new training staff so their pitchers aren't constantly injured?
That is actually one of the top stories on the MLB Trade Rumors website. Is they are going to get a new medical staff. But you are right. And, it's kind of sad for Terry Collins to resign when he had, all this talent in the world and he just couldn't do it, but because of injuries.
He had talent in the pitching staff.
Mm-hmm.
His position players weren't the best. Because, David Wright was hurt. Asdrubal Cabrera wasn't hitting as well. Cespedes was pretty much their best player.
Mm-hmm.
And then they traded Lucas Duda. Their catcher, was it Travis d'Arnaud?
It was a mixture of Travis d'Arnaud and somebody else that I can't think of at the moment.
Okay.
It will come to me.
Yeah, and then they had Jose Reyes playing third base.
Which Jose Reyes does not deserve to be on the field, like me.
No. Yeah. So it was going to be a tough season for them, but the Mets could have been a lot better if their pitching was healthy.
Yeah, and go ahead.
And I just think New York's ready to move on from Terry Collins.
Yeah, I think just things went sour after the 2015 season. It was kind of a magical season for them. making it all the way to the playoffs and not really thinking about them. It was kind of bittersweet because he was, I believe, like the oldest or the second oldest manager. Him leaving, he had a good run, with the Mets. I know he's had problems with, winning because of injuries and all that stuff. But sometimes you just got to go. And the Mets and the Phillies are going to be, they're kind of in this, not necessarily the Mets. The Phillies are in total rebuild, and whoever becomes manager will definitely have the plethora of talent coming to him. But with the Mets, it's like what you said. They're talented on the pitching side, but not necessarily talented on the position side. Besides Ahmed Rosario, which he is a really good shortstop for them, and he's shown a flash of greatness, through call-ups and all that stuff throughout the year.
Yeah. And so whatever new manager comes to the Mets, if the pitching stays healthy, even without a high potent offense, they should be able to compete in 2019.
Yeah, I do agree. Most definitely. And I do have to say we have to stay in the National League East, which is I guess very, very interesting to talk about, is that the Braves general manager, John Coppolella, if I'm saying that correctly, Coppolella, if I'm saying that correctly, resigned surprisingly because of him breaking international free agency rules. And it's still up in the air to what rules specifically, but it just says that he's resigning because of those, because he broke some of the rules.
And from one of the first articles I read, it sounded like he was trying to sign away a international player that had already signed with another team.
Okay.
Unless I completely misread that.
Yeah, I'm reading a little bit of it too, and it looks like there was. Yeah, go ahead.
It was like a 16-year-old international prospect too.
See, there you go. And that's always questionable. I don't think we've have a, no, there are some 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. I know mostly it's 17, 18-year-olds. If you're doing, free agency, signing or, drafting, it's always like those 18-year-olds coming out of high school. But this again is totally different because it's international signing. There's different rules and regulations on how everything is supposed to happen. And it just seems, like they must have tampered with something, or, like what you said with how they were chasing after a prospect and trying to buy him, even though he already signed with someone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just reading through another article, and it's not really saying a whole lot either.
Yeah, I think it's right now just a very, very, raw news right now. The article from MLB Trade Rumors, it's only from 2 days ago, and there hasn't been anything else since from it.
Yeah, and it looks like it has to do with, in 2016, they signed 13 international prospects led by a 16-year-old Venezuelan, and they paid him a $4.25 million bonus.
Wow. But that's still underneath the $5 million max.
Yeah. But it could have, if they signed 13 players, did they do it like the Red Sox did a couple years ago? You remember that?
Kind of.
Where they would sign a group of players at a certain amount, but they would pay like trainers and stuff too, so they could pay the players more to sign a group.
Yeah, I kind of remember that now. And that was with Johan Makata now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of questionable dealings up in the front offices of the MLB. But that's it. That is enough of the news in the MLB. And of course, we brought it up, earlier.
Well,
First,
we should hit what the Royals did though, because they let go 4 coaches as well.
true. Yeah, you are right. I mean, the Royals did give up, did let go 4 coaches. The Cardinals also gave,
Most notably,
yeah, go ahead.
most notably for the Royals, it was just Dave Island and Don Wakamatsu.
Mm-hmm.
And Wakamatsu was actually one of the leading manager candidates last year for the Tampa Bay Rays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, he might have the chance to be Phillies or Mets manager because he did.
Yep.
Didn't he manage? I believe he managed the Mariners before he came to the Royals.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's up in the air, where everybody can go. And, I mean, that's happening all around the MLB, too, is releasing bench coaches, pitching coaches, hitting coaches. Same thing with St. Louis. They gave up, Derek Lilliquist and the pitching coach of the St. Louis Cardinals, which is, again, kind of a very odd release of a coach when he's done really well. I think it's just, for me, as just an opinion, I think it was just to, I guess, cool the masses on the whole fire Matheny thing, because it's like, we got to blame somebody and we got to fire somebody. Why not the pitching coach when it was his final year of his contract? So.
Oh yeah. So pitching coaches like that will end up somewhere without a problem, but the Cardinals aren't going to blame Matheny for anything.
Not until probably next year or 2019, depending on what happens. So anyways, now it's time for playoff baseball. Enough of the news. We're going to have a podcast all about the news, what has been going on with the news later on after the playoffs, after the World Series, because this is what's important right now, is the playoffs. Yes, both of our teams didn't make it, but the playoffs are the playoffs. It's a magical time of the year, right?
Yes, it is, when we have to root for somebody else.
Yes, and now you kind of know why we like multiple teams, because sometimes our teams don't make it to the playoffs, and you got to root for somebody. And last night we're 0-1 per se. I mean, last night we tried to root for the American League Central wild card team, the Minnesota Twins, against the dastardly New York Yankees, and it did not go well. It was 8-4 Yankees, and it was I would describe the game before going into what happened. I would describe the game as odd but compelling.
Yes, it was compelling up until about the 4th and 5th inning.
Yeah.
But to get to the 4th or 5th inning took over an hour and a half.
Hell, just to even get to the 3rd inning was an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the 1st inning, again, if you guys did not watch the game last night, the 1st inning, there was 6 runs total, 3 on each side, took 45 minutes, which, working at minor league game, that's probably right around, per se, the 3rd inning, the start of the 3rd inning, give or take. Because
and that sounds about right for MLB pace too.
Yeah, which, I mean, sometimes the middle of the 4th inning is hits the 1st hour mark. So there was a lot of baseball, a lot of things going on. It was interesting to see, second. Well, it was actually the fifth pitch of the game. Hunter Dozier, yeah, your guy. No, Brian Dozier, getting a little ahead of ourselves, right? Royals 2020, right? Anyway, Brian Dozier, 3-1 pitch, hit a home run. And what the interesting thing about this is, and most of the home runs too, is that not only that it was high in the zone, but they were laser shots. They weren't, moon, over the moon shots. I believe Didi Gregorius was really the only one that had kind of a arc shot,
Yeah, Eddie Rosario's in that same inning was just a slider that hung out around the zone, and he just turned on it, and it was just a laser line drive.
Yeah. And, yeah, it was just really interesting. 5 home runs in the, 5 home runs. And you said every scoring opportunity except for one was off of a home run.
For the Yankees.
For the Yankees.
And the Twins.
Yeah. So, I mean, the game last night was very, like I said, odd but compelling. The first 4 innings were fun, but then everything settled down, and then the Yankees won. And, we were expecting Aaron Judge to really do some stuff, and he did. He went 2 for 4. He walked once. I believe he got a single and a double, he would have got a single and a home run, which everybody's like, oh, he's got to get a double and a triple for a cycle. I'm like, first of all, he's not going to get a cycle. There is no way that kid's going to get a cycle.
And he didn't strike out last night.
Which is very interesting, even though he struck out over 200 times this year.
Yep.
So, yeah, like I've been saying, the game was odd, but very compelling. Aaron Judge, go ahead.
From a pitching standpoint, the Yankees throw Severino out there, the best pitcher the whole year, and he lasts a third of an inning. Right now, he has an 81 ERA for the playoffs.
I don't think that could ever be taken down.
No. But after that, the Yankees pitching staff just settles down. Chad Green gives them 2 innings of 1 hit, 1 earned run. David Robinson goes in 3 1/3. He only lets up 3 hits, no runs, and struck out 5. Chad Green struck out 4. Then Cannell.
It is Conley. I say Conley. They say Canely, and I'm just like whatever. Just go with the flow.
Canely came in and gave them 2 1/3, 1 strikeout, no hits, no walks, and then Chapman closed the door, 1 hit, 3 strikeouts. So there's 13 strikeouts for the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we talked about, is that the Yankees have the strong bullpen, and the Twins didn't have a strong pitching staff.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at it from the Twins pitching, their total staff last night, 5 walks, 5 strikeouts, 8 earned runs, 9 hits.
And 3 home runs.
Yeah.
So
and Santana let up 2 of those, and then Barrios let up the other one.
Mm-hmm.
But Santana gave them 2 innings, 4 earned runs. Barrios gave them 3 innings, 3 earned runs, and then Hildenberger gave them 1 1/3 and 1 run.
Yeah.
But it was a little too late at that point. But Rogers, Busnetes, and Bessel shut the door, but it was too late at that point.
Yeah, again, right when that 4th inning came, Aaron Judge hit his line drive home run, which was still weird. It was already over. I believe before he hit that home run, it was 4-6. I mean, actually, it was 5-4. He hit that home run to make it 7-4. And, the one thing that people that wanted the Twins to win There was one moment where it was I had it written down. I guess I didn't have it written. Oh, there it is. Yeah, right after Robertson went out, he went 3 2/3 or 2 3. Yeah, 3 1/3 of innings. It was bases loaded. No, it wasn't bases loaded. 2 on. Mauer almost hit a shot to the left side, but it was just short. Would have tied the game and would have made it more compelling. But that was it.
That's baseball.
It is. It truly is baseball. And that's where, that kind of just leads up to the question, the Twins look good. They're probably, it's probably going to be a 2-man race in the American League Central. The Yankees look good. It's going to be, the AL East is always going to be, always going to be a crapshoot. But it definitely solidifies them more. But that's all future talk. We're here to talk about now. Watching the Yankees last night, do you think they're going to give Cleveland a run for their money to go 5 full games instead of, I was thinking, 3 or 4?
No. No, I still think the Indians could do it in 4. They won't sweep them, but the Yankees will win 1.
Okay. I mean, there's no wrong answer. No right answers here and no wrong answers.
But this is the way I look at it is Indians have been the better team all year. They've been the better pitching staff all year. And man, I should have had it pulled up. Wanted to see how the Yankees and Indians fared against each other this year.
I believe the Indians had the better of the two, but
the win-loss record.
Yeah, but I will confirm that in a moment.
Okay. But the Indians have a little bit better of a starting pitching staff, I believe, than the Yankees. Yankees might have the better bullpen. But if the Indians get a lead, their back at the end of their bullpen has fully capable of shutting it down.
Mm-hmm. And just to interrupt real quick, the Cleveland Indians had a 5-2 record over the New York Yankees.
Okay. So just, we like to look at stats and prior performances, and all prior performances indicate that the Indians will do it in 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, some people, some of the commentators from last night said that, throw away the win-loss records from this year. Playoff baseball is different than anything else. But it kind of solidified last night of, how it's all done. I mean, from this year, the Yankees beat Minnesota, 4 out of 6 games. 4-2 record against the Minnesota Twins. So it kind of shows that not necessarily you have to throw records out, throw the records out, but you have to kind of, look at how every team performed against another team throughout the season.
Yeah, exactly. And so just looking at it, even if you could probably argue that maybe the Yankees have a better offense of run scores, maybe. Yeah, and I don't have those stats in front of me. I can pull them up, though. But I still think the Indians' pitching staff is going to be able to shut down the Yankees.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you there. I think it's just going to be, hard for the Yankees to accomplish something when pretty much your pitchers are going to be Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco, and Trevor Bauer. Hopefully no injury to him from, drones. God, that was stupid. Still stupid to this day, folks.
Technically, the Yankees have more runs scored than the Yankees this year. The Yankees have more runs scored than the Indians this year.
Okay, I was about to say the Yankees have more runs scored than the Yankees. That makes
Yes.
sense. But no, I mean, but what's the question is, I think another question you have to look at too, which is not really talked about a lot, is kind of the run differential number, because that definitely shows how. I mean, not only that it shows how much offense you had, but how much your defense did throughout the season.
Yeah.
And if I could pull this up real quick, it was, and of course, darn you, MLB.com, for not having those numbers up. But anyway, my point across, trying to get my point across, is that when you produce a lot of runs, but you also have a really great rotation plus bullpen, your run differential is going to be exorbitant. And I think that's where it's kind of I think that's where you kind of see these teams really pretty much shine from it. So
Yeah. And I was just kind of looking through comparing the Yankees to the Indians so far this year. And offensively, they're about even, except for when it comes to strikeout rate. Their batting average is only Indians is 263, Yankees is 262. Their WRC pluses are 107 and 108. Their WOBAs are exactly the same at 336. Their on base percentage is 339. The Indians have a 449 slugging, and the Yankees have a 447.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
And I find what I need for those run differentials. And the run differentials, I mean, you said that the Yankees they have scored more runs than the Indians, which is true, 858 to 818. But you also have to look their runs against, where the Yankees had a 660 to Cleveland's 564, which if you look at the differentials, the Indians have a 254 plus, and the Yankees have a 198 plus. So they can do it. Hell, every team can do it, but it just shows how well the Cleveland Indians did this year. And when you look at the run differentials with the Yankees and Minnesota, why they had a better chance is because Minnesota only had a run differential of plus 27.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and really, if you kind of look at, run differentials are so interesting to look at. There's 3 teams that did not make it to the playoffs that have a run differential of 1 or higher, and that's your Milwaukee Brewers, St. Louis Cardinals, and the Los Angeles Angels. But it just shows that the Brewers were a better team, the Cardinals were a better team than the Yankees, run differential wise. Not the Los Angeles Angels, which they had a run differential of +1.
Oh, man.
I mean, what can you do? But getting back to, talking about the Cleveland Indians and the New York Yankees real quick. I know that we're confident in our picks. We talked about this last week in the other episode. We've talked about it off air. But what makes you so confident with the Cleveland Indians over the New York Yankees, which, the Yankees did well against 2 of the very prominent Twins, 1-2 punch of the rotation?
Just looking at it, I don't know. Like maybe it's because I watched the Indians play the Royals so much this season that I just seen them kind of dominate, and I just think that they're just going to carry that forward.
And I mean, I think I can't, disagree with you on that. I mean, I've watched other games where Cleveland, they dominated some games, and there's games that they, played their hearts out and won. They were tight games, specifically against Boston, some of the games against the Yankees that were on national TV. I think really in, some circumstances, the Twins, the Indians just look like a team to win. And I think they got that chip on their shoulder. They were, one out away, they were one run away, from winning it. It goes into extras, the rain delay, yada, yada, yada. I know they're tired of hearing about it. But I think because the Cleveland Indians have that chip on their shoulder, plus also having, not winning the World Series since the 40s, since they have now the longest World Series drought in baseball history. I think it's just really interesting to see that I think it's really interesting that the Yankees kind of still showed that last night, what I said last week, Aaron Judge is going to be your first guy, and then who's going to be the next guy to really, bring it up. And it was Didi Gregorius, but that was it. Go ahead.
And he's having a career year this year too.
Mm-hmm. And
he had career highs. Yeah, he had career highs in batting average, home runs, and RBIs this year.
Yeah, and that's where it's just, who's going to be the other guy? I know Brett Gardner did well last night. I mean, he almost got hit in the head from a pitch. I believe Judge almost got hit.
Look at the rest of the team. If you don't look at the first four guys, Gardner, Judge, Sanchez, Gregorius, each of them have 1 to 2 hits. Then Castro, their number 5 hitter, goes 0 for 4. Greg Bird goes 1 for 3, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. Aaron Hicks has 1 hit. And then their 8 and 9 hitters, Ellsbury and Frazier, have no hits, and Ellsbury led 5 guys on base.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was key situations too. I mean, definitely they could have added more, but yeah, you're right. There's nobody kind of quote unquote stepping up besides Judge, Gardner, Sanchez, and Gregorius, even though Gregorius only had 1 hit, 1 walk, 1 strikeout,
His hit is what tied the game back up.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is very true. And so, I mean, I have to ask: are you still confident with with the Cleveland Indians?
Yeah.
Winning the series.
Yeah.
Had to ask. And so, yeah. I mean, I'm still confident with it too.
Yeah, and with the Indians this year too, they're going into it with a little bit healthier pitching staff than last year.
That is also true. Because if I remember correctly, Carrasco was injured. Salazar, didn't pitch since like August.
Yep.
A lot of the
Trevor Bauer got hurt, like drone.
Yeah, the drone thing. Good old drones.
Yeah. But yeah, no, they're going into it with a healthier pitching staff. And a lot better bullpen too.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the difference maker. That's going to be definitely the difference maker for them. But, it's baseball. Anything can happen. And, that leads up to our next part of the American League is anything could happen. Can the Houston Astros beat the Boston Red Sox? I know that we had, we picked them. They've looked great all season. What are the key factors, would you say, for the Boston Red Sox to win over the Houston Astros?
I think it would have to, what we always talk about in the playoffs, pitching.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Sox got to be able to pitch better.
Mm-hmm.
And with David Price not starting for them, maybe they gain a slight advantage because they can use him out of the bullpen.
Yep.
But you're going to be relying heavily on Chris Sale, who pitched 214 innings this season, then Rick Porcello and Drew Pomeranz.
Mm-hmm.
And those last two guys have ERAs of 4.65 and 3.32. And then their other starter, Eduardo Rodriguez, has an ERA of 4.19.
Mm-hmm.
So you got four other starting pitchers who are good-ish, but that two of the four have ERAs over 4.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to throw Doug Fister out there with a 4.88 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
David Price has only thrown 74 and 2/3 innings in 16 games this year.
Mm-hmm.
Or 16 games, 11 started.
Mm-hmm. And I mean,
right.
I definitely agree. You got to have better pitching, and those guys that you did name, Eduardo Rodriguez, Drew Pomeranz, Rick Porcello, all those guys, they have, even with the last month of the season, they still had high ERAs, and that's, that was kind of the thing. We asked each other last week, who would be your rotation for, who would you choose as a rotation to win the World Series? And, we kind of, went with the Indians on both, but it was also, you got to look at, what's been going on with the ERAs. And, of course, Chris Sale's the guy to go. I mean, he's the better guy out of everybody, even though he has a 3.72 ERA in the last month of the season. But you also, who's really going to be the definite guy right behind Sale? And that's where that's the question mark. Because David Price, he's not going to be starting. John Farrell said that, after he had that scare with his elbow, they said that he is definite bullpen for the rest of the season. And I believe he's going to probably be like the Andrew Miller type, go 3 innings, through 4, 5, and 6, maybe 7, and, let the rest of the bullpen go do well. On the other side, though, on the hitting side, I think the question is who's going to be the guy to really, come up and really shine for them. They've had Xander Bogaerts. He's been doing well for the last month of the season. Mookie Betts, another guy that's been doing well for the last month of the season. But really, the other guys have not been, really shining. Rafael Devers, the guy that they called up, he's hitting 277, which is pretty good. But then you have Andrew Benintendi, 238. You have Christian Velasquez, 275. Eduardo Nunez, which is kind of interesting. I believe he's injured, but he's only, had 32 at-bats with a 3. I mean, he's hitting well, 344, but that's a little bit of a low sample size, for a month to really be, really, I guess, have, really to have substance. And then you have Dustin Pedroia, Brock Holt not doing well, and all that stuff. But Pedroia is the guy that's been there for, since 08. Actually, yeah, 08. 04? Was he there in 04? No, he wasn't there for 04 when they won the World Series.
Clicking on it now. And he got called up 2006.
Yeah. But he's been there for all the championships, 08 and 13. He's the leader of the position players, but these guys haven't really done jack. I mean, Jackie Bradley Jr., 93 at-bats, 172. Even though probably, the best hitter, power hitter, Mitch Moreland, has a 407 slugging percentage, but he's hitting 198. So it's, to me, it's just, there's nobody really credible with the at-bats to really have that substance to really be that guy. And, Dustin Pedroia probably, he needs to be the cheerleader. He needs to be the leader of this group to really do well. And when you look over on the, the other side with the Astros,
they're competing with.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're competing with Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, George Springer, Marwin Gonzalez, Alex Bregman, Josh Reddick, Uleski, Gurriel. All of those guys are hitting 280 or better.
Yes, and that's where it's just like, wow.
And all of their strikeout rates are below 20%.
Again, just, kind of in an awe-inspiring. And it's just, when you compare them, it's not that great. Even though this season when Houston and Boston played against each other, Houston just barely has the win over them. They've had a 4-3 record. So if you want to compare them, in a 7-game set, there you go. Houston 4, Boston 3. And so if you really, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's just the same thing with their pitching. Is they have a little bit better, consistent starting pitching. They've gotten really good production out of Brad Peacock. Charlie Morton has pitched well for the year. Dallas Keuchel was hurt and only threw 145 and 2/3 innings, but he has a 2.90 ERA. And Justin Verlander's 34 innings with the Astros has a 1.06 ERA.
And, I kind of don't want to tell you or the listeners about what their ERA for the last month of the season is, because it's gonna make really the Boston Red Sox fans that listen to this really, really jealous in a sense. From games started, Justin Verlander with 5 has a 1.06 ERA. Charlie Morton, 5 games, 2.54. Brad Peacock, 5 games, 2.57. Dallas Keuchel, 5 games, 2.87. That's your rotation right there for the playoffs. Keuchel might be a hit or miss of starting because he's quote unquote the 4th guy, from starting game perspective. But Colin McHugh, he's above 4. And that would be your 5th guy, throughout the season. He has a 4.26. A lot of jealousy, when you look at the Red Sox rotation to the Astros rotation last month. A lot of jealousy is going, from the Boston fans to be like, we have this dominant guy in Chris Sale. We have last year's Cy Young winner, blah, 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 blah. And it's just that it's not working for the last part of the last month of the season, where it's time to double down the chips and push them all in, because it's playoffs time. And that's going to be the difference maker really between winning and between losing. And that's really all I have to say. If you want to look at something else that's really eye-popping, is that if you look at the Houston Astros opponent batting averages, Verlander, 149, Brad Peacock, 160, Charlie Morton, 234, Dallas Keuchel, 233, Colin McHugh, 266. When you look over at the Boston Red Sox numbers, Drew Pomeranz, 246, Doug Fister, 260, Eduardo Rodriguez, 225, and he's the lowest. Chris Sale has a 272 opponent's batting average. And this guy's supposed to be the lights out, possibly going to win the Cy Young. But he's giving opponents the opportunity to hit the ball. I mean, it's even, if you look at also the BABIP, it's even worse. But I'm not going to go into it because, again, Houston just is the better team pitching wise and the better team hitting wise. And they got the depth too to really, to really shine. And I guess I have to ask you this, Phil. What is the one intangible that either team, doesn't matter if you want to talk Red Sox or Astros, what is the one intangible that one of these teams have to win it, to win this series? Not necessarily World Series, but just what is the one thing that a team has that might go over the edge and win this playoff series?
Chris Devenitsky.
Okay. From, relief pitcher for the Houston Astros. And
Yep.
What's the reason, really?
Is that for a relief pitcher with no game started, he's pitched 80 and 2/3 innings.
Okay.
So in 62 games. So he has the ability to, let's say, Brad Peacock pitches 5 innings. Chris Devenitsky can go out there and give you 3 innings to get it to Ken Giles.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll be able to turn around and do that and give you at least another inning and a half the day after as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a guy like that in your bullpen and the starting pitching the Astros have, I just think that's their one intangible that keeps them obviously competitive.
And obviously the team to win the series. So, of course, I have to ask your confidence with the Houston Astros winning this series from a scale from, I guess, 1 to 5, 5 being the best. How confident are you with the Houston Astros winning this series?
4.6.
4.6. I like the 0.6. Nothing wrong with that. That's almost like I'm guessing, if I remember correctly through math, that would be like a 92. So
Yeah.
I mean, hey, nothing wrong with that. I feel the same way, not getting to the points, but definitely a 4 out of 5. I mean, I think it's a 5-game set, which is even worse than a 7-game set, because from last night's game, it's winner take all in that one game. With a 5-game set, it has that mentality of a short series where anything could happen at any time, and that's going to be the difference maker. And that's the reason why I'm still confident with the Houston Astros, but there's going to be that moment where there's going to be, a Bill Buckner, through the legs error, of miscommunication on a throw where it goes wide. I mean, hell, even last night, I can't remember the guy's name from the Minnesota Twins, but he stepped over the bag, didn't touch the bag at all. And the
first baseman dropped the ball.
And the first baseman dropped the ball. I mean, he was worried that he might get into a collision because it was, really hectic in that situation. But it was definitely the situation where errors, missed opportunities will happen. And I think the difference maker between this Houston club from, 2 years ago, because they were that's their playoff club, they didn't make it last year, or the Boston Red Sox, for that matter, is that I think there's more veterancy with the Houston Astros. They're hungry to win. While the Boston Red Sox, they are hungry to win, but there's not a lot of, I guess, to me at least, not a lot of veterancy, because remember last year they got swept by the Indians in the first round. They don't have, they don't have a lot. And I mean, you could say the same thing with the Astros, but the Astros haven't, changed a lot during that time from 15 to now. And the same,
No, they're bringing back essentially the same team.
Yeah, and it's kind
except for they.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, they're just giving Marwin Gonzalez actual playing time now.
Which we're kind of
Called that
soothsayers
back
on
in
that.
June.
Yeah,
That's fine.
yeah, we're a bit of soothsayers on that.
Yeah. And they're a better offensive team than the Red Sox. They have a better pitching staff than the Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
So, unless the Sox can just muster it all together at once, then that's why I give them 0.4 of a chance to beat the Astros.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I totally understand, and I was going to add if they try to put in the relief pitching first, then the starting pitching, everything's going to change playoff baseball, blah, 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 blah. No, I just don't see that happening. I don't even see that happening.
How cool would it be if the Astros trotted out Chris Stefanitsky for Game 1? He pitched 3 innings, and then Brad Peacock just come in and shut it down the last 6.
I think it would be more. I think, first of all, I think I would be interested to see that. But, maybe that's a question, after the break of who would you like to see that, that situation happen? Which closer would you like to see come out first, then starting pitching? And I was about to say Craig Kimbrell comes out for an inning or two, and then Chris Sale, rockets into the 3rd or 4th inning and just wins it for the Red Sox. But in playoff baseball, there's no time to experiment, and you got to win. I mean, maybe,
exactly.
Yeah. So it's just really difficult, to root for the Boston Red Sox when you have the information in front of you. Of course, the game is not played on paper or digital media. The game is played out on a grass field with dirt, 4 bases, a rubber right in the middle of those bases, and a, 90-degree view of where to hit it. So,
for
go
me,
ahead.
it's a little hard to root against the Red Sox because when the Royals were absolutely terrible, and I was in high school and the Red Sox were doing what they were doing, they were easy to root for.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been to a game to Fenway, so.
Yeah, you, if I remember correctly, you went to a game not only at Fenway, but you got to sit up on the Green Monster, so.
I didn't get to sit up on it. I got to go stand on top of it.
Okay.
And take a picture.
Hey, still, getting on top of the Green Monster is is something that I haven't done yet. But
what's also cool is you remember Derek Lowe for the Red Sox, the pitcher?
Mm-hmm.
You know how he was, I think, traded or signed with the Braves?
Yeah.
In 2009?
Mm-hmm.
I got to see his first game back at Fenway.
It's a win-win right there.
He was pitching against Josh Beckett.
Ooh. That had to be
it was a really good. Yeah, it was
had to be a really
matchup.
good one. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So, people have a lot of sentimental value with the with the Boston Red Sox, like you do. Us with the Yankees, we're always going to hate the Yankees, unless somehow they go bankrupt. Don't play baseball for 5 years or 10 years. Somehow come back and just, be the middle of the road market team like Cardinals to Royals range. And we might start liking them, but anytime soon, that's not going to happen with us. So that's going to lead us to the break here on the MLBeers podcast. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the National League side of the playoffs and a little bit of the preview of tonight's wild card game against the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Colorado Rockies, and of course, the second part of our name for the MLBeers podcast, the beer section of the podcast. And we will be right back. Hello, folks, back for the second part of the MLBeers podcast. And, of course, we're going to talk about the second part of our name, the beer portion of the MLBeers podcast. Phil, what are you drinking today?
Surprise, surprise, it's another Logboat beer.
Still waiting for that money.
It is their Dark Matter Wheat Porter.
Sounds delicious. Do you care to describe?
I enjoy it. I'm checking it in right now. Give me just a second. All right. No, I really like it because it's a little bit different than porters because it's a wheat porter. So they use a bunch of wheat malt, so it's really smooth and subtle. There's not a lot of the extra bitterness you get from the chocolate and coffee flavors.
Mm-hmm.
That you typically get in a porter, because a porter sometimes is a little dry.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one, it's different. I like it a lot.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with it. I think that's an interesting combination because I've never seen anything like that. A wheat porter. So,
yep. I enjoy it.
I think that's a very interesting combination, and I definitely would have to try that one out.
Yeah. It's perfect, especially the way the weather is today.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And, the weather here isn't the best for baseball, but you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah. So, how far are you getting into fall beers right now? What are you drinking?
Well, I'm finally done with the Oktoberfest beers because I believe
they ran their course.
Not only that, but I believe this weekend was the end of the Oktoberfest festival out in Germany. So then I decided, it's October now. I guess I have to be that basic girl that everybody loves. It's time to drink.
Get drug boots?
Well, what? Did you say drugs?
Ugg boots.
Oh, no, I don't have any Ugg boots. I don't have any Tom Brady Ugg boots, or I do not have any Han Solo looking outfits for the fall months. But I am drinking not a pumpkin spice latte, but a pumpkin ale by Schlafly Brewing Company out of St. Louis, Missouri, and I think it's kind of one of the staples of if you're going to have a pumpkin beer, let Schlafly's do it because it's really delicious. It kind of reminds me of a pumpkin pie. Yes. Pumpkin pie in a bottle.
What bottle cap rating do you give it?
Bottle cap rating?
Untapped. 1 through 5.
If I had to give it a bottle cap rating, it'd probably be a solid 4. And, the reason why I say that, and Untapped is such a weird thing because at first I used to have this just solid, 1 through 5 ranking of just beer, period. But then I went to, all right, what's the ranking of this style of beer? Because I started drinking triples all the time, started to drink Oktoberfest, every style all the time. And it's like, is it better or worse than, this beer? I mean, if we're talking about wheat beers, you would have the Boulevard wheat as your standard, as your controlled. And then you would have Oberyn, which would be, better than the, the unfiltered wheat by Boulevard, which is the Bell's Oberyn, which which I've never have gotten the half keg, the little keg.
Ooh, those are
for
fun
it,
though.
but I've always wanted to get one. But that's what happened to me. I started to do like, okay, is this good for this style? Yada, 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 yada. And then I just completely was F it because it's not going to work. But I definitely have to say that the pumpkin ale from Schlafly's is pretty dang good. And there's a couple more pumpkin ales that I'm going to try for the rest of October. But I think I'm just going to, give a little hint. I think we're going to do a first here for the beer section of the MLBeers podcast, for the beer section. That hasn't been done before, if I can remember. But it's a beer, it is a pumpkin flavored substance, I'll just say.
What substance would that be?
Oh, it's still an alcoholic substance. Don't get me wrong. We're not going to be doing like
Vodka?
well, no, it's not vodka. It's an alcoholic substance, but it's not like pumpkin flavored meth or whatever people are thinking, which if that ever came out, I probably would just leave the United States or leave the world if that ever happened. But on a serious note, though, the Schlafly's pumpkin ale is probably one of the best. And like you said, Phil, it is literally pumpkin pie in a bottle. And I'm just ready for somehow Schlafly to be like, let's put a little bit of vanilla on it to be like, oh yeah, this is like pumpkin pie with whipped cream, But that would definitely be very interesting to see how, all that would happen. But that's going to be it for the beer section of the MLBeers podcast. And now it's time to talk about a team that I really hate. That's definitely a team that would drink a lot of disgusting pumpkin spice lattes. And that would be the Chicago Cubs versus the Washington Nationals in the first National League Division Series. And Phil, I gotta ask, what's your thoughts? Initial thoughts about this series?
The series that the Cubs will win. Initial thoughts.
Really? I have to listen to your thoughts. I care about you and what you feel about.
Initial thoughts. Maybe a little bit of a hot take, bold pick, but I don't think you see John Lester start game 1 or 2.
That is a bold pick. That is truly a bold pick. Not gonna lie.
And I think it will go Jose Quintana, Kyle Hendricks, and then Arrieta, and then John Lester if needed.
I think it's even bolder that you had Arrieta as the third man in the rotation. But, whatever floats your boat,
But just looking at the numbers and John Lester's decline this year is that I don't think the Cubs want to afford a lengthy series with the Nationals.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to play the Dodgers in the next series.
Mm-hmm. And,
So I think the Cubs go as much as they can all in game 1 through 3 and try to sweep.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a little bit of rest on their side to face the Dodgers.
Yeah,
because the Dodgers are a powerhouse.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that, and I think definitely the Dodgers are going to have a tough time, with the other team, which we'll talk about that in the moment. But really looking at the numbers, when you look at the Chicago Cubs against the Nationals this year, the Nationals 7-game set, Nationals won 4-3, and also when you look at the run differentials, the Chicago Cubs had more runs than the Nationals, barely by 3, but the Nationals kept those runs against lower than the Cubs, and that's why you have a run differential of plus 147 Washington Nationals and plus 127 for the Chicago Cubs. And when you really look at it, the numbers wise, and why I said it was interesting to see Jake Arrieta, you say him being the third man, is that he has right now, September numbers are not friendly with him. He has a 6.10 ERA, a 8.38 FIP, a boldly 3.33 opponent batting average and BABIPs, but he does have that nice 81.8% left on base percentage.
And he was there last year for the Cubs in the playoffs.
And I think that might be the difference maker.
And I know John Lester was too, for all you're all going to say that. But John Lester just has not been Lester-esque this year.
Mm-hmm.
He has a 4.33 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
His K rate is only 8.97. His walk rate is 2.99. Last year with the Cubs, in 202 innings, which were 22 more innings than he pitched this year, his ERA was a 2.44.
Mm-hmm.
Year before that with the Cubs, 205 innings pitched, 3.34.
Mm-hmm.
So, his ERA is practically doubled this year.
And that's not good for a man that's done well for many teams in the playoffs.
Exactly. So that's why I think you can see the Cubs getting away from him, especially in this first series.
Mm-hmm.
If they do it right, I think, like I said, they use a rotation. I said for the first 3, if they can sweep the Nationals, Lester would start game 1 of the Dodgers series.
Mm-hmm. Potential. And, you look at the numbers, like you said Quintana, Hendricks, Arrieta, John Lackey has done real well for them. But when you look over at the National side, it's, those numbers that the Cubs have look a lot better.
John Lackey's ERA for the year is a 4.59.
Yeah. But I should have said that his September numbers, because the September numbers, are not that great.
His K rate is down. His walk rate is up. His home run rate is up. Everything's up for him and Lester this year.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. If you look at the last month, why I said Hendricks, Quintana, and Lackey, not only because you said it, Hendricks 201, Jose Quintana 251, John Lackey 273, John Lester 418, and Jake Arrieta with a 6.10. And those are all their ERAs. And when you look at, batting averages, opponent batting averages, and opponent BABIPs, it's kind of the same. You have Hendricks with a 229, Quintana 223, Lackey with a 190 opponent batting average. But then when you look at Jake Arrieta, has that 333 opponent batting average, and John Lester has a 286. And of course, it doesn't look better when you look at the BABIP. But if you look at it, look at the Nationals through the month of September, it looks a lot better than what the National have. And right now, I've just got to say this, Max Scherzer is up in the air if he's going to be part of the, playoff rotation for this series. He right now has a 4.05 ERA, with 6 games started. Steven Strasburg, the only guy that is south of 4. I'm not saying 3 or 2, south of 4 with a .83 ERA. Then Tanner Roark has a 4.83, Gio Gonzalez with a 5.47, and then Edwin Jackson has a 9.82. And AJ Cole, a guy that came in for them in tough spots, he has a 3 ERA. But I think that, those 5 guys, Scherzer, Strasburg, Roark, Gonzalez, and Jackson, were pretty much the guys throughout the year, especially when Ross went out for the rest of the season. And I think that's going to be the difference maker when you look at these both of these clubs is going to be the pitching. If Strasburg is iffy, that's going to be a difference maker. That's going to, put a little boost to the Cubs' confidence, and that's why it's going to be iffy. And if you try to really look at the Chicago Cubs offense through the month of September, there's guys like Bryant that's done well. John Jay, a guy is their almost everyday center fielder, has done well. Javier Baez has done well.
Which is kind of surprising.
286 respectively. And yes, it is very, very different. But the difference maker here is that Anthony Rizzo, he's hitting 236. Ben Zobrist, 227. Kyle Schwarber, the giant killer of the playoffs, is hitting a 283, which, yeah, it's nice. Don't get me wrong, but it's also, if you look at the rest of look at it from the rest of the season, especially in September, he has a 30.8% strikeout rate, which is really ridiculous for a guy.
Oh, yeah. And for the year, he's only hitting 211.
Yeah. He's found his stride. Don't get me wrong, in September. I'll give him that. And, last night, if you been paying attention to the Twitter sphere, for us, a fellow colleague of mine at the news station that I work with commented on our picks about the postseason, and she wrote down weak with like 7 Ks, and of course I had to do it. I said, are those Ks the amount that Kyle Schwarber is going to get during the series? And she was pretty mad about it, but she took it like a champ.
I appreciate it. But, you're rattling off all these numbers, and you picked the Nationals to win.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's really kind of hard to argue with that, because if you look at their batting, what these guys are doing, they got 5 guys hitting over 300 for them right now.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Lynn, Ryan Zimmerman, Daniel Murphy, Bryce Harper, Anthony Rendon.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Adam Eaton replacement, Michael Taylor, 271. Trey Turner has really done well for them at short. But he's only been in 98 games, but he's hitting 284.
Mm-hmm.
And they went and got Howie Kendrick. He's hitting 293.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, Trey Turner stole 46 bases for him.
Yeah, and stole 9 in the month of September. And that's kind of the other difference maker too is, you look at the year, you got to get the sample sizes down to September. And really, if you look at September, it's kind of that, that sparse, that wide range of who's doing well and who isn't. I mean, you brought up Trey Turner, you brought up Michael Taylor, Zimmerman, Rendon, and Murphy, guys that really are doing well for the Nationals right now with September numbers. And there was a moment where Bryce Harper was injured, and that was kind of the key difference. If Harper was going to be
able to come back.
Yeah, was he going to be able to come back? He only played 5 games. He hit 167 during that time. He did get 3 hits. I mean the 167 can kind of conclude that, but he also had 2 stolen bases, and I think that kind of boosts their mentality a little bit. That we lose Scherzer, but we still get our big rocket hitter with Bryce Harper, and
And how long Scherzer going to be out?
I think he's going to be. I haven't seen what the rotation is for the Nationals, but I think it's going to be like a day-to-day thing, if he's ready or not. And I think that's where it's going to be, kind of the difference maker for the Washington Nationals, because if he's not ready to go, who are they going to put in? I mean, you already have Steven Strasburg and Gio Gonzalez, which Gio Gonzalez is a guy they've been talking about how he could win the Cy Young. But really, who's the fourth guy in this situation? Is it going to be Rourke?
Right now from Scherzer, from the reports. And it looks like Strasburg's going to start game 1.
Mm-hmm.
And Scherzer insists that he'll be ready for game 2.
Mm-hmm. So, if he's ready to go, if he
pitches game 2 in this article too, he was quoted as saying that he will start game 5 if needed as well.
And, he'll get that rest. It will be enough for that rest. And that's where, it's kind of the difference maker between these two clubs is that you have Washington that's bringing its offense back but loses a key pitcher, while the Chicago Cubs are, losing those, still have their hitters but aren't hitting well. But the guys that, would be, Quintana's a definite one, but you have Hendricks and Lackey, your 4 and 5 guys, have pretty good ERAs for the end of September, going to be your possible 2 and 3 starters in your playoff rotation, where Jake Arrieta, a guy that definitely was the man for their 2016 campaign, and John Lester, the other guy of their 2016 campaign, are doing pretty poorly, and that's where it's going to be. It's going to be a toss-up, and I think another thing too. Of course, if you look at the numbers, I think the one key stat that's going to, make or break the teams is going to be the K rates, the strikeout rates, and it's not a pretty sight if you look at the Washington Nationals in the last month. All but one person, depending on the at-bats, have a percentage higher than 20% strikeout rate. While if you look at the Cubs, their top, Chris Bryant is the only guy, again, if you look at their at-bats, has a 21.6% strikeout rate, while Rizzo, even though he's doing terribly, has a 14.7. Ben Zobrist, 15.8. John Jay, 13.6. Jason Hayward, 12.2. Javier Baez, he has a 27.4% K rate, but it's just the amount of guys that have started for them have really low K rates but are, doing well in a sense. And that's where it's going to be, a very difficult – it's going to be a great series, no doubt. I think that's where it's going to be difficult, and that's where the game is going to be at, is going to be the strikeout percentage. And so I have to ask you, Phil, you have the Cubs, I have the Nationals. What's your confidence rating for them?
3.87.
3.87. And I'm guessing you're reading off of somebody's ERA. You almost had Mike Montgomery's September ERA. He had a 3.80, which so you were close. You were close, but no cigar.
But no, I still think the Cubs will do it. They still want to go back-to-back, and they have that mentality. And I think if the starting pitching, their top 3 starting pitchers step up, they have the good enough offense between Bryant and Rizzo and Javier Baez and the threat of Kyle Schwarber either, goes bigs or strikes out. If you place him in the right spot in the lineup, I think the Nationals have a lot to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, for the Nationals, for my side of the argument, I have to say, looking with Max Scherzer being out, possibly still getting possibly game 2, I think I would have to be, a 3, maybe a 3.5. And no, that's not reading anybody's ERA either. There's nowhere, the numbers aren't even close with that. But really, like I brought up before, those strikeout rates for the Washington Nationals is going to probably be the fodder for the pitching rotation of the Chicago Cubs. Because if a batter strikes out, he's going to, be angry. He's going to be starting to rush his, swings and start swinging erratically. But if you're the pitcher and somebody strikes out, you get that confidence boost and you're ready to, take on the world until, somebody hits the ball or, jacks one out. But it's just that if the strikeouts are going to be prominent in this situation, the Cubs are going to give them a run. I mean, a 3.5 is not bad, for for confidence, the confidence meter. But if you really look at it, it's going to be closer than anything appears. And of course, through this year's, team by team record, the Washington Nationals barely beat out the Cubs, winning 4 of the 7 games. So,
yeah.
And I mean, of course, that like I said, that's going to be the difference maker, and it's going to be a great series. And another, yeah.
It is. No, it's going to be a good series, but I still think the Cubs do it.
And I think Washington will pull it out. I think Washington will finally have a series win since 1926, I believe, since the Washington Senators.
It would be exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, and Washington Senators having the second seed has the home field advantage, so they're going to be playing 3 games in Nationals Park. So it's going to be very interesting. But we got to shift, we're talking about East Coast matters. Now it's time to switch over to the West Coast matters. As we were talking in the break, regulators mount up for this one, folks. The Dodgers, the top team, thought they were going to break the record, are going to face some wild card foes from their division that has given them a racket the last month of the season. And, if you really look at it, you look at the Dodgers, and the last month has been, again, kind of sporadic. Bellinger has been quiet for the last part of the season. He ended with 39 home runs, and I believe it seemed like the last home run he had was 2 weeks before the season ended. Yasiel Puig, another guy that, last year was, decently well. Now he's, back up to snuff. Justin Turner, a guy that's, year in and year out since he went to the Dodgers, has done well. What is the one thing for the Dodgers, looking at this wild card matchup, I should say, Phil? What is the one thing that they should watch out for from both of these teams? And I mean,
from the Diamondbacks and the Rockies?
Yeah.
Offensive prowess.
Okay.
Each team doesn't have the pitching staff or bullpen that the Dodgers have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think each team has a very comparable, if not maybe a little better, maybe a little worse offense.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to terms of hitting for average and hitting for power.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you take a look, let me pull them up.
Yeah, because again, I have all the September numbers, and if you really look at them,
this is for the year. This is for the year.
Go ahead.
You're looking at Paul Goldschmidt. He's hitting 297, 36 home runs.
Mm-hmm.
Jake Lamb, 30 home runs, 248.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those guys, 20-plus K percentages.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get to J.D. Martinez. In 62 games this year, he's hitting 302, 29 home runs, but has a 28.8% strikeout rate.
Mm-hmm.
With those kind of numbers, the Dodgers are going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are top 3 hitters for the minus David Peralta for the Diamondbacks.
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I have winning the wild card game tonight. And the Dodgers are going to be able to quail that with the starting pitching and bullpen they have between Alex Wood, Clayton Kershaw, Yu Darvish, Kenley Jansen. Those type of guys are going to be able to shut down that kind of offense. Mm-hmm. But if they can cut down on the Ks, on the strikeouts, then it kind of turns into a new ball game. Because if you look at the Dodgers hitting, and let me pull that up, for the year, Justin Turner is the only guy hitting 300 or better.
Mm-hmm.
Corey Seager's hitting 295 with 22 home runs. Justin Turner hit 21. Chris Taylor hit 21. Cody Bellinger, like you said, hit 39. Puig hit 28. And Yasmani Grandal hit 22. But Grandal was hitting 247. Puig 263. Bellinger 267. So if the Diamondbacks are going to do it, they're going to have to limit. Sounds like, I feel like I'm going to say like John Madden. You're going to have to not let this team score as many runs, and they're going to have to score more runs than them.
Mm-hmm.
But it becomes a little bit different of a ball game because Cody Bellinger strikes out 26.6% of the time, Chris Taylor 25, Grandal 27, and Corey Seager 21, and Logan Forsythe 24.8.
Mm-hmm.
Kiki Hernandez 23, Jock Peterson 21.
Mm-hmm.
So these teams strike out a lot.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's kind of the thing with the last month's numbers. Bellinger, 252, Chris Taylor 218, Yasiel Puig 286, Justin Turner 296, but then Corey Seager 210, Logan Forsythe 197, and these guys, are not bringing much to the table on on base percentage or slugging. I mean, Cody Bellinger has an 855, Yasiel Puig 868, and Justin Turner 927. But if you look at the other guys, Taylor 616, Seager 644, Forsythe 640, Yasmani Grandal 638, and I didn't say Grandal's number for batting average, but it's a 154, below the Mendoza line. And I think, and you really have to think about this too, when the Dodgers face one of these teams, you got to remember the Dodgers in the last month was in a slump. And I mean, it was so bad that the San Diego Padres, the San Diego Padres swept them. And that's kind of the difference maker. They're kind of near the end of the roller coaster, unless somehow they kind of reach another hill and then they just go. But they might be almost done with it. And yes, I do have them winning the divisional series over the Arizona Diamondbacks. But I think it's going to be a tough one for the Diamondbacks to face the Dodgers. And I also think it's going to be a tough one when they face the Colorado Rockies. You kind of brought it up earlier how both of their pitching rotation, the Diamondbacks and the Rockies, are not that necessarily great like the Dodgers, but the hitting is magnificent. I mean, DJ LeMahieu, his last month, 286. Charlie Blackmon, 290. And he was actually, if I remember correctly, the first he broke the record for the most RBIs as a leadoff hitter with 104 this year. And the record he broke was from Darren Ernstad. I had to look this up earlier. Darren Ernstad of the Los Angeles Angels in 2000 with 100 period. So yeah, we can't rule out the Rockies yet. I know we have the Diamondbacks beating the Rockies. We have the Dodgers beating the Diamondbacks. But I think, this one was a toss-up. And
it was a tough one to choose. But kind of at the end of the day, between the Diamondbacks and the Rockies, you got to look at the consistency the Diamondbacks have got out of pitching compared to what the Rockies have got consistently.
Mm-hmm. And, really, let me see. I know they probably have the lineups up already for tonight's
pull
game.
Up at bat and see what they got.
And I hope it's Mr. John Gray of the. Yep, it will be John Gray versus Greinke. And this is kind of a, somewhat of a bold choice if you really look at it, because Zach Greinke, he has a 3.90 ERA, which is not bad, but he's against John Lester, and he has a John Gray, which he has a 2.57 ERA, a 10.03 K per nine, a 1.8 walks per nine, and his opponent batting average is a 2.23. But we also have to say Greinke's numbers are somewhat the same. His opponent batting average is a 2.32. He has a left-on base percentage of 76%. But when you look at John Gray, he has that left-on base percentage of 82.3. And I think that's where it's going to be the difference maker. The hitting, go ahead.
I was going to say, and what helps is that, at least with the Diamondbacks, they're not playing in Colorado.
Yeah. And I think, that's going to be the difference, kind of the difference maker. Who's going to win this game tonight is the atmosphere. It's, not only that it's going to be in Arizona, but it's not mile high up. It's in a retractable roof stadium. So that's going to be kind of the difference maker with, two atmospheric changes. The ball is going to be heavy. The ball is going to be normal. And it's not going to be light where it's just going to hit and just float. It's going to be, an action-packed game. And, I had the Rockies being third this year for this podcast in their division, which, kind of happened in a way. But looking at the comparisons between the Diamondbacks and the Rockies, you got to take the Diamondbacks in this situation. I think the Diamondbacks are just ready to go. I think it's going to be a raucous crowd no matter what. But I think at the end of it all, when you have the bullpen pitching, you do have Pat Neshek, you do have Greg Holland, two good guys, and their last months with the Rockies have done real well. You also have, for the Diamondbacks, Fernando Rodney, he's done well. Jorge De La Rosa, Anthony Banda, other guys for the Arizona Diamondbacks that have done well. And I think it might be the home field advantage that will win this game. And it will be the first time ever in the wild card, game era that both home teams won the series.
Okay. But yeah, no, I agree with you, though, that if the Rockies are going to be able to do it, they just got to put a stop to the hot Diamondback hitters, and they got to get excellent starting pitching.
Yes. And, John Gray has done it this year, but, it's up in the air.
They have an excellent bullpen, like you mentioned, with Pat Neshek and Greg Holland.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of like the Royals of 2014 and 2015, is that you got to be able to get to that guy with a lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And, just to really clarify how everything is, the Los Angeles Dodgers have a plus 190 run differential. Arizona Diamondbacks, 153. The Colorado Rockies, 67. So that's going to be that's going to be a little bit of a difference maker. And also the Colorado Rockies have a 2-game losing streak. I know that doesn't matter because they got the days off. But that's going to be, that's going to be the difference maker. And also Arizona has an 11-8, record against the Colorado Rockies. So, again, the Arizona Diamondbacks have a better opportunity to take the win tonight and also to give the Los Angeles Dodgers hell for the division series.
I agree.
I was about to say, do you have any other thoughts with that, Phil?
I don't. I think we covered it pretty well today.
Yeah, I think we covered it real well, much better than last episode. But I mean, again, a lot of things could happen in a couple of days, and we've kind of seen it here with with this year's with last night. And I think what's going to be the difference between last night and tonight's, it's going to be, again, a lot of hitting. I don't think it's going to be, there's going to be 6 runs in the first inning, but I think there's going to be a lot of hits. There's going to be a lot of plays that are going to happen, and it's going to be interesting throughout the whole game and not end by the 6th inning. So,
yeah.
But also, so anyway, that is it for the episode today. I do want to say I have to give these guys a shout out. I know we didn't talk about this last week that one of us was going to get on the Twitter account and have fun with the fans. But last night I posted a hashtag for the fans to have fun. It was about what is your favorite meal during the postseason, and I had chili and hot wings. You had hot wings and jambalaya, which I have to say jambalaya is pretty close for these nice cold fall months. But I have to say, I have to give a shout out to the podcast, The State of Podcast, where they talk about pop culture. Last night they answered the question, and they said beer. And you know what? I go, you know what? I approve that. It's in our name. Why the hell not? So, I mean, I have not listened to any of these, any of their episodes, but it seems like it's a pop culture podcast where they talk about cinema, television, and much more. And the guys seem like they have fun. I mean, if you go to their Twitter, State of the Podcast, they're 2 guys, I think they're from Wisconsin, and the only reason why, well, not only because it says on their Twitter, but they are drinking New Glarus, which is a
Wisconsin
brewery, and both of them are drinking while they're doing the podcast. So I have to give a shout out to them. So anyway, if you are listening to this on our website, which I know more people are listening to iTunes, but we are also on SoundCloud and TuneIn, which is great. 2 great applications to listen to this podcast on. But again, iTunes is kind of the place to go. And if you like this podcast, of course, like it and share it with all your friends and family members. If you did or didn't hear before the podcast started, we are part of the Tangent Bound Network, which has a plethora of genres from pop culture to nerdiness to geekiness and everything else. Phil, you know it more than I do.
And you summed it up. That's what it is. It's just a collective network where you can find you can find your interest in any podcast.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and it's a wonderful network. I'm glad to be a part of it, and I know Phil, you probably are glad as well as I am. And of course, if you want to get in contact with us, we have an email at MLBeers@gmail.com. We also have a Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram of the MLBeers podcast, and also we're on Untapped. And finally, I said that perfectly without saying tapped in or any type of tapping. I said that perfectly. We are part of the Untapped app, which is registering your beers, checking in your beers, whatever beer you're drinking. We've already posted during the show that Phil is drinking his beer from Longboat, and I'm drinking my pumpkin ale from Schlafly's Brewing Company out of St. Louis. But if you want to contact us individually, My Twitter is RealAWS13. And Phil, what is yours?
At Philco816.
So again, folks, that will do it for us here on the MLBeers podcast. Our motto, our creed, our saying for this postseason, win or lose, there is always booze.